Mr. Dank. Now, what it does not say is anything above and beyond straight operating cost, that now is going to, as you mentioned, revert back into the general fund. There is no reserve at all. There is no reserve. The reserve now reverts completely to the general fund.
Yeah, that's not what it says. It allows the governing body to take surpluses and make a transfer of those surpluses when, in the judgment of the governing body, they deem it appropriate. It's only when you have surpluses.
Which is a reserve. I mean, that's the whole point of a reserve.
You keep speaking about it as if anybody's even made a half-hearted feint in the direction of the electric reserves. I would personally get up here and filibuster and proselytize against using any of the electric utility funds against for anything other than the electric utility, or if for any other reason, for something that has to do with the water or the wastewater utility. And honestly, Christy Harrison, Tori Roberts, Heath Freeman, yourself, nobody seems to be interested in the reserve funds of the electric utility board. I don't know that you've weighed in on this, Larry, but
I mean, I'm not in favor of taking money that isn't ours and that isn't in other words, when it's all commingled to begin with, it's just like any other department, right? I mean, you have needs and we have spending limits, and the money is spent as needed. So, I mean,
and we're governed by Kansas statute otherwise.
I mean,
Anybody else have anything further to?
I would note that the same statute also applies to the city's water utility
And wastewater.
and sewer. So, I mean, the capabilities of accounting for it in this manner presumably are already in place.
Yeah. Do we have a good idea of what it is that if someone were to make a motion that we were hoping to stipulate?
I think the two that were agreed upon were on Section 2, Item B, adding that current members will serve the remaining terms. We didn't really discuss the ex officio non-voting member from the city council. I suppose we could amend that at a different time. And then the other was the deletion of the first sentence of Section 4, Item C, to the extent that the board under 2296, I believe there's consensus on that as well.
I'll stipulate that Larry thinks that we should go with legal counsel's advice on this. Is there anybody else that has problems with either of these two?
So, well, let me ask, what's the result of taking that out, in your opinion?
I mean, in my opinion, to the extent that they took action, like I said, to the extent they took action which was beyond their authority, it's void as a matter of Kansas law. So I was just adding clarity to that. It doesn't negate that void act anymore. So
you'd be okay taking it out?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we should.
If he's okay with it, then I'm fine with it.
At this point, if what we're setting up here is an advisory board, things are going to come to council before they get approved. Now, I'm in favor of VPU. It's a well-established fact. It was well-established in early 2011, before I even started running for city council the first time. So I'm in favor of a VPU, and I've been in favor of an ex officio member on it for many years now. And it said at the end of the last meeting that I'm going to continue to try and drive towards a board of public utilities. In the meantime, we've got a couple of situations that we need to get ourselves straight with, which is how we've ended up with these proposed revised ordinance. So, does anyone else
I have a question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Is there any way that we could perhaps keep the existing ordinance with better enforcement, better communication between EUB, City Council, but then do immediate research and immediate, get it into a BPU and include wastewater, water? Is there something, I mean, is is the ordinance broken so much that we have to fix it now and then come back to the table and do a BPU? Or can we tighten the reins a little bit, keep the existing ordinance, and immediately, like within 6 months or whatever, a short time frame, do a BPU? I mean, is that feasible, or?
We're here just to solve this
I
problem.
know.
Well, I understand.
You agreed last time that you agreed with the changes that were made.
I agree in
So
most
we're here to
parts.
solve a legal
Okay.
problem that the Electric Utility Board is operating outside of the law. And we have, you know, our legal counsel who says that this is the solution to that problem. So why don't we just focus on the problem at hand?
It is, but I was hoping to look for maybe the future, get it all fixed at once instead of do this now, then I would never do it again. I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, you know, I think that there's actually a majority of council members, and I would say 4 out of 6 on the governing body that would like to move towards a BPU, but in the short term, I think that it would be irresponsible not to take appropriate action when we realize that we're operating afoul of Kansas statute, not by any thought or harmful malice or bad intentions. It just happens to be that that's the way that the previous ordinance was arranged.
What specific statute? Or statutes?
Sure. If you,
I would like to get that,
Okay.
please.
I see 7 areas of variance from Kansas statutes. The first is, and this may take a while.
That's fine, I'm
The first is the language on bond issuance. KSA 12-801 dictates that the governing body has the power to issue bonds. KSA 12-802 dictates that the governing body pass an ordinance for the issuance of bonds. KSA 12-803 dictates that bonds be issued by the city. In contrast, the ordinance at Section 4K requires that the EUB determine that the issuance of bonds is, quote, necessary and expedient.
Hey, Ryan, could I interrupt for just
Yeah.
a moment? Steve, I think we just had 4 examples. I know that that Ryan's appointment as city attorney and the selection of MVP as the law firm that was going to represent the city was unanimous. I can appreciate that you want to hear this, but he's already mentioned 4 different things, and it's a matter, I think, at this point of, does all the rest of the council feel like we need to hear every one of these pieces that Ryan's reading chapter and verse from Kansas statute?
I dispute him on this because of the fact that the board said, the same section says the board may make written requests to the city council for the issuance of the bonds. The city council issues the bonds.
You're talking about the ordinance we're planning on
The first
repealing?
3 areas of variance that the attorney has stated, it says right here, that the board may make written requests to the city council for the issuance of bonds. That there may be variance, but it's not conflict.
Dean, actually, that's, if we had exempted ourselves from state statute, using a charter ordinance, then that would be good replacement language.
Yeah, my quarrel was with the prerequisite finding in the ordinance that the EUB, before the city council is, in essence, authorized to take up the issue of the issuance of bonds, is the prerequisite that the EUB find that the issuance of bonds is, quote, necessary and expedient for the construction, extension, or improvement of the electric utility. Obviously, under the statute, the authority to issue bonds lies solely with the governing body. The ordinance requires this precursory step, this necessary finding by the EUB before the matter can be presented to the governing body for a determination. I think that's inconsistent with the statute.
So you're saying that the board usurps the city council's authority with that determination or finding?
Right, I mean, that is, under the ordinance,